Hi everyone, Leo Alvarenga here with Goodstory. I'm with Shadi. We're going to talk a little bit about the market, what we saw for the month of April. Let's jump right into it. So for the month of April, we are seeing a very different market than what we're used to. For the last 6 to 10 months, it's been very slow. Things seem to be picking up. Talking numbers, we're looking at about a 13.9% increase in sales price when compared to the bottom of the market, which was in December 22. So what does that mean? It means that there's less time for buyers to look around. Things are moving faster. There's still opportunities. There's still conditional periods, but we are seeing a lot more buyer confidence in the market. And why is that happening? We think this is happening purely based on inventory levels. I think that's the biggest issue. Like driving, prices to go up again. So I think we're looking at, if the stats correct, we're looking at about 25% less inventory in April 23 versus April 22nd. That is, I think, the main factor. Of course, buyer confidence with the pause on the rate hikes, etc. So yeah, definitely a different market. We're still not at the peak level that we were last year around this time, but it's definitely a healthier market when it comes to selling your home. There's still opportunities for buyers out there, of course. Very curious to see what the summer's going to unfold. What are you seeing, Shadi? These are the numbers, these are the stats, but what are you seeing?
Yeah, it's interesting because I had a conversation with a buyer recently, and she was telling me, but I'm seeing way more houses coming up for sale. And yes, there is an increase in inventory compared to the beginning of the year, but there's much more buyers out there making a move than there is inventory coming up. So that's why it's very important to explain to people the difference between less inventory, because people are seeing more signs on the lawn. But what is the difference between less inventory compared to actual active listings, right? So the amount of inventory in the market right now, we're, I think, below 3 months worth of inventory. So how long would it actually take for all this inventory to sell if no new listings come up? So yeah, she was like, yeah, I see way more houses for sale. So how is prices coming up? Well, because there's, like you said, more buyer confidence.
There's more demand.
Exactly.
More demand,
So all these people that were on the sidelines last year, kind of waiting and lingering to see what was going to happen, they realized, okay, this is it, right? This is a new reality. Sure, there may be changes in interest rates in the future, but we are this is where we will be probably for the foreseeable future. There may be small changes in those rates, and fixed rates and variable rates, but it's not going to be a substantial change that will really trigger the market to have a drastic change compared to what we had last year, right? Because we had interest rates going up I would say at the end of the first quarter of 2022, but it took a few months before it reflected into the market.
It wasn't
right?
until like the third rate hike, the big one in July, that things really cooled down.
Exactly. Now, something very important that you mentioned as well is the conditional period. Many people are starting to get a little bit anxious because they see property selling in multiple offers and so forth. But the reality is they're almost having like PTSD from last year. But the reality is that we're not in the same environment as last year, and we will likely not be. There's going to be it's going to be a warmer market, but it's not going to be something that we're going to see. Most properties selling for 100 and 150, which is happening in some cases, but very, very specific situations, right? How's it been with you? Like, how are you seeing, for example, with your sellers and buyers?
Well, I'm seeing a little bit of everything. I think it's a case by case. Like certain properties are moving more than others. There's a very active price point anywhere between like 400 and 600. Maybe even spilling into the 700 range. That's moving very, very quickly. The million plus market is still taking a little bit of time. We had buyers that purchased a home over $1.5 million, and they actually managed to save over $150,000 from the asking price. In that specific scenario, the owner of that house had bought it 2 years ago and paid even more than what they were even listed. So they took a very big hit. So we're still seeing situations like that. Not as commonplace as the last 2 quarters of 22, but we're still seeing opportunities in certain property classes. But also it really depends how quickly you're able to act on these things too, right? Because not everyone is aware of these changes. Not everyone knows that the market is heating up. If you have been looking, for the last month or two, you will know, because you might have missed out on a few offers.
Yeah.
I know you've had some clients that have missed out on offers.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. Like you said, some might have PTSD. Some are like, well, nothing was selling over asking for the last 6-7 months. Why am I going to pay over asking now? So it's really important to educate the buyers. But also, one thing I wanted to touch on is what Shadi was mentioning earlier, what's called the absorption rate. So what is the absorption rate? That's pretty much the rate at which properties get bought out. So if there was no properties listed on the market, how long would it take for every single property to be sold? So right now we're running around between 2 and 3 months of inventory, which is seller's market. Anywhere between 4 and 6 months of inventory, it's a balanced market, which is what we experienced last year towards the end of it. Anything over 6 months, it's buyer's territory. So we haven't been in a buyer's market, I would say, for 8 years or maybe longer. I'm not sure what the number is, but we haven't experienced the buyer's market in a really, really long time. And right now, again, we're running with between 2 and 3. And to put things in perspective, like you mentioned, we're not quite at last year's market.
Yeah.
Last year in January, February, March, we were running with less than 1 month of inventory. In some cases, it was like 0.5, 0.9 months of inventory, which was insane. So we started this year with about 2,000 listings. We have our friend, colleague, Steve People. Shout out to Steve again. He keeps track of the numbers, of the stats, how many properties are actively on the market. And we were keeping close tabs on that. We started the year with about 2,000 properties in the Ottawa Real Estate Board, condo and freehold. And right now we're running, still, it hasn't increased more than 10, 15%. To put in perspective, the beginning of 2022, we started with 900. So half of that, right? That's what fueled that craziness. And of course, we had the low interest rates still. So inventory, I think, plays a massive factor. Like I mentioned, I think until there's more properties coming on the market, I think it's going to be really hard for prices to actually cool down. So we're still about 10% lower average price than last year, the craziness of the market last year. But from March to April, there's been a 5% increase in average sale price. All right. So it's been that trend. It's been going up for the last 3-4 months. So,
and the only reason why prices are not going even higher or more drastically higher is because we still have that interest rate factor, right? Affordability is people qualify for less than they did last year. If it wasn't for that, then, and this was the whole purpose of interest rates, right? It was to control that blowing proportion of prices. If we didn't have the rates we have right now, we would see prices skyrocketing again. So this is the whole purpose. This is just a recovery market. We had interest rates increasing drastically. There was a big change for everyone. Affordability changed dramatically. The market naturally,
but the buyers still were there. The buyers are still there. It's not like the buyers disappeared. People still want to buy.
Exactly. And this is why people, I find, I would say consumers act in delay. We do this every day and we kind of monitor the market and we kind of see the tendency of things picking up. But by the time that the consumer realizes the environment we're in, because everyone acts by the masses, they see the environment and they kind of go, and also the media plays a huge factor. It almost like there's a delay between reality and consumers' perception. Like they realize a little bit too late, right? But that's why we have to, like you said, having that constant conversation, not just once, but like repetitively with your buyers, constantly educating them, because you can say it once, you can say it twice, but they're gonna experience their own environment. They're gonna hear their friends, their colleagues, their neighbors, whatever, because everyone feels like they know about real estate because it's become a trend right now, like with the media and exposure.
Is covering it a lot,
but there's also a lot of misinformation, right? And
numbers don't lie too.
But I still hear people saying, "I'm going to wait, see what's going to happen,"
which is
fine. But that's why it's important to keep educating people, because for some people, waiting may be just the best for them, because real estate is not just something that's financially beneficial. But some people it's an emotional purchase. People need to be prepared. People need to be mentally ready to make that move. And I was having a conversation with another client yesterday, and I was sharing this data with him. And I was just telling him that, your price point is already limited, right? Because you're a single income person and you have a solid job, solid income, but unfortunately, Canadian real estate is not affordable. You can have a very solid employment, but if you're solo and you don't have family money, then it's harder for you to buy.
Challenging.
Exactly. It's very challenging. So there's already a limited budget and there's already not enough inventory. But the reality is he's not ready to make a move. He understands the concept and he understands the fact that it may become more and more challenging.
Why is he not ready?
I think it has to do with uncertainty on his personal end.
Okay.
Right? And there's that factor, right?
That's important, yeah. It's not always about the market, it's about your personal.
Exactly. So for some people, and that's why it's very important to understand every case by case. But in general, as long as he knows and understands that it may become more challenging for him to qualify for a purchase, and he understands that and he acknowledges it, then good. But some people just, I'm going to see what's going to happen. This may just be a bubble, a speculation. We had it last year. People were speculating, saying, I'm going to wait. It's a bubble. The bubble,
never really
dissolved a little bit because, significantly, actually, almost 20%. But it doesn't mean that it crashed. It was balancing out and it's going to recover. So what's going to take before these buyers or sellers realize that this is just the nature of market, right? Ottawa's real estate or Canadian real estate behaves on a trend that we see historically. There's going to be outlier situations, the pandemic, interest rates, and all that. But unless something dramatically happens in the economy, in the global economy and Canadian economy, or something that goes beyond everyone's control, then it's not going to just happen like that. Inventory is inventory. Consumers are consumers. These are the numbers. This is the amount of product we have available. This is the amount of buyers we have available. The time that will take to build more houses and the amount of new people coming to the city, specifically in Ottawa, and immigration, it's just not enough. It's not going to change from one day to another. It will take decades before we see a dramatic change in affordability.
And I think that's a good segue to talk about something we went to a presentation the other day through the OREO, Ottawa Real Estate Investment organization, and they had a really good presentation about Bill C-23. And I think this is a good segue to chat about this because it's inventory levels, right? It's supply. It's basic economics. Yes, there's other factors. Of course, you can't dumb it down to that. But in an overarching way, that's the main issue. It is supply, period. And I think we're taking the right steps. I think that bill, along with others that have been introduced recently, are really going to push the envelope if they're adopted quickly and properly by municipalities. So the bill, pretty much, it's super important, and it's really important to talk to the right people, to talk to the experts, to talk to people that do this every day. I'm not talking about us specifically, but we have the right contacts, city planners within Ottawa, architects, etc., that are very well versed in this matter. But it's super important as if you're an investor or if you simply have a home, right? What does this bill mean to you? I think it's very important to know at least the basics. And just like in a nutshell, pretty much this bill will allow any single family, any single family dwelling can be converted into a 3-unit building, pretty much. In a nutshell, that's what that means. So you can actually have a house like Rockcliffe Park, for example, one of the most affluent neighborhoods in the city. You couldn't even have a secondary dwelling in Rockcliffe Park. With this new bill, that's gone. You can actually have a secondary dwelling in a house in Rockcliffe Park, for example. And what does this mean for a lot of there's a lot of developers, there's a lot of renovators that are wondering, that are kind of on the sidelines right now, rightfully so. What's happening is, for example, you have a lot where you could build 2 semi-detached homes in the past, with a secondary dwelling on each of them, so that total of 4 units. You can actually turn that lot into a 6-unit building now. So you can split that lot into a semi-detached. Each semi-detached can have 3 dwellings, right? So this is huge, especially when you're looking at at bigger projects. Obviously, that's just one part of this bill. Another very important part of that bill too is that you don't need site plan control for less than 10 units. What's site plan control? In a nutshell, it's pretty much a very tedious and arduous process that the city of Ottawa puts you through if you wanted to do 4 units or more in a building, whether it was through a renovation or a new build. Site plan control was extremely tedious, and now you don't need site plan control for less than 10 units. So I think that's really going to
accelerate
the supply the supply issues. It's still going to take some time, but I think if the municipalities are open-minded and they actually follow through with everything like they're supposed to, I think we're going to see some really interesting development. What our architect Rosalind Hill has been saying for a really long time is and pushing for a really long time. I know she's been a big advocate, is the missing middle, right? So 4, 6 unit small apartment buildings, walk-ups. That's really what we're missing, right? Because again, site plan control was one of the biggest ones. Zoning restrictions as well. It was really, really hard for you to actually getting more than 3 units. Right. So anyways, that's Bill C-23. There's a lot more to it, of course, but in a nutshell, that's really what, did I say nutshell once?
Yeah, you said it probably 4 times, but that's okay. We get the point. It's just,
so in a nutshell, that's Bill
fine.
C-23. And yeah, no, if you have any questions, I think it's really important to rely on the experts. Yes, we consider ourselves experts in certain matters, and if we are not experts in that matter, we will tell you, and we will find the right person.
No, you've gone through the experience yourself. You've built yourself, so you know what it is, right? So you're not just talking out of knowledge, but also experience, which is very important, right? Going through it is very different than just knowing. So in a nutshell, is the city is pushing for densification. That's just pretty much it. It's more densification, more people within certain space or communities. And again, that's the whole purpose, is making sure there's more people living or more units within that specific space, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, there's going to be challenges with transportation, because we know that Ottawa needs a lot of improvements in transportation. So that's another topic.
Yeah,
that's a different topic. But again, this is not going to happen from one day to another. And again, the effect on our market is not going to be seen in at least probably in 10 years, right? So that's when we're going to start seeing really the real effect. Maybe 5 years. I don't know how quickly this gets implemented. But I think we're going to still see a supply issue for the foreseeable future. These are just measures to alleviate that pressure, which I think is great.
Yeah, that's it. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Good Story podcast, and hopefully we'll catch you on the next time.
See you, everyone.